Why are gas prices so high in the United States if we are using our own oil? What a good question. It is the most consistent question I get about gas prices because Donald Trump will tell you, and he's not wrong, that the United States is generally speaking oil independent. We, generally speaking, produce enough oil equal to what we consume. Here are the two tricky parts of that. Oil and all major commodities, gold and wheat and all sorts of things, are priced on a global market. It is priced centrally. You buy it at a particular price in a global market, and you take delivery of it wherever you want. So if you're taking delivery of U.S. oil, for instance, it's actually a little more expensive than international oil right now because it's ready faster. So oil is not, you don't get to set your own price of oil even if you make enough oil. It's set. You'd have to really take this whole tariff thing to an extreme where you don't trade oil with anyone, and that's a problem for us because a lot of the oil that we manufacture, we produce in the United States, is oil that is shipped to other countries. So we take a certain type of oil that is more suited to our refining capabilities, and we take that in. We get it from other countries, including Canada, and we ship out a particular oil that we tend to not want to refine. It's not as useful for our demand. So the oil that we use in America is called West Texas Intermediate Light Sweet Crude. Light means it's actually a light oil. Sweet means it's got very low sodium content. In the rest of the world, they use a heavier crude. It's called Brent crude oil. That's the price of world oil. So the point is, unless we cut off trade to the world, we still buy oil, gold, copper, fertilizer, potash, all those things on global prices. So we do make enough oil. That's why this is different from the Arab oil embargo. Back then, you had lineups for gas because there was an actual shortage of gas. You couldn't get enough gas. It wasn't just the price. Now you can get enough. There's no shortage of gasoline. You're just going to pay more money for it. And as you saw, we are paying more money. I do want to run what Donald Trump was saying, because he said a lot, particularly to Maria Bartiromo at Fox Business, about where the price of gas is going, which I think is on most people's minds. Let's listen to some of that, Christina.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be. It could be or the same or maybe a little bit higher.
All right, that was Sunday or Monday he said that. And then
that last frame.
Let's go. Yeah, Maria, what are you talking about? And then listen to this.
Is that going to be enough to offset the increase in gasoline prices?
It will be, because gasoline's coming down very soon and very big.
So you think gas prices will be lower before the midterm elections?
I think they'll be much lower before midterm, much lower, yes.
So what is it? What is it? Is it lower or higher? This is in the course of a couple of days.
It's a great question. And also, his answer right now doesn't exactly matter, except that it makes great campaign ads for Democrats.
You're 100% right. It doesn't matter because it's not up to him.
It's an eternity.
Right?
It's not up to him. And also, what most Republican campaign strategists have said to me when I've been like, are you freaking out? They're like, yeah, but not really about this specifically, because they feel like they have an eternity between April 15th and November when the election is held. And quite candidly, they are right. It's an eternity in politics world. And they also feel like if the administration is able to keep to their timeline with the Iran war, which is why it's instructive to play something else that President Trump said, so we'll do that in a second. If they stick to their timeline on this being a 4 to 6 week excursion, as the president likes to call it, then that means it wraps up and that prices can potentially start to normalize. Potentially is the key word, and then the question of when it's over is important. So why don't we play 4, or rather 5 on that one?
You saw Maria Bartiromo, who is not known for tough interviews with Donald Trump. Pretty amazing when he said what he said. She was quite taken by the whole thing.
You keep saying is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
So just to unpack that, like, I mean, he's talking about it like it's over, and there's two reasons why he's doing that. The political side is, of course, what we were just talking about, but then to take it back to Congress, there is a 60-day military authorization that they are currently working under to do this action. And once it hits 60 days, there's an open question for senators of don't they have to vote to allow the administration to continue?
Right.
Now, Republicans weren't pressing a vote to begin with, so probably not. But it is a potential inflection point that goes forward if the conflict stretches past 60 days.
Right, right. And it is a little tricky because he does say it's over. He does say he's bombed them into the Stone Age. He does say the biggest problem is the Strait of Hormuz. And the irony is that I'm waiting for him to find some deal and the Strait of Hormuz open and then say that he's, mission accomplished. Right.
I remind mission people, accomplished for the mission that you had to create in the first place.
Right. The Strait of Hormuz was operating perfectly before the war started. So that's
kind of like, that meme that's like nobody, absolutely nobody. And then it's like President Trump, let's start a war so that we can end the war.
Yes.
By finishing the thing that we started.
Yes. And look, Donald Trump will often do this, right? There'll be 2 problems to solve, and they might be legitimate problems. And somehow he'll get involved, and then it'll become 10 problems, of which he'll solve 5. So you're still down by 3 problems, but he doesn't have any issue with claiming victory for the thing he claims victory. That said, most people don't fall for this nonsense, right? The one good part is this is a war in another part of the world, so you could go through your daily life, generally speaking, if you don't have to fill gas, not thinking about it. But you can't not think about wars. I mean, they are real things, and there are real people who send their children to these wars. We have another question about what an off-ramp to this war actually looks like. It's from Ali V. We need better eyes.
Parmigian Reggiano.
Oh, good name. I like that.
I love that was my opportunity to read one.
There you go. As far as the military operation in Iran goes, what's the realistic off-ramp?
There's a few.
Okay. Start. I mean, I don't know what do they look like? I'm trying to think about them myself.
So the off ramps look like what we're starting to see from Republicans, which is, I think, what ultimately ends up happening here is that they change the guardrails of what success actually looks like.
Right.
And success was supposed to be incapacitating their nuclear program in Iran, which means dealing with the enriched uranium stockpiles, which theoretically we also dealt with already last summer.
They said that we did this in June. The term was obliterated.
Exactly. It was obliterated then, obliterated now, and yet also still very much not obliterated. Yes. And so what I'm watching Republicans start to do on Capitol Hill is say, well, it's not really a problem. We got their nuclear capabilities because we got their missile program to be obliterated, incapacitated, whatever word you would like to use. And if you can't attach the uranium material to an actual missile, then you don't have a nuclear capacity, and we actually won.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure that foreign policy experts and nuclear experts will buy that. And yet, that is likely what the Trump administration is going to lean on when they say, we got the Strait of Hormuz reopened, we're doing more talks in Islamabad as early as this week, potentially, and we've incapacitated their Navy and made it so difficult on the ground that we've changed. And yet the other stated purpose initially was potentially regime change, and they've ended up with a regime that is even more entrenched and more radical and now even more motivated to continue terrorizing the region, just like the Iranian prior regime.
And I remind people that regime understands that its survival is existential.
Yes.
If they fall out of power, there's no road for them. Their entrails will be dragged through the streets. So they are fighting for their very lives. It does become complicated. Donald Trump said in the State of the Union address, which I thought was strange. He sort of slipped this line in that we're stopping Iran from being able to, have a nuclear missile that can attack the United States. There is nothing. I mean, it doesn't matter where you stand on where Iran is in its nuclear preparation. Iran doesn't have a nuclear bomb, and it doesn't have a missile that can reach the United States. They're many years away from being able to do that. Said it again a couple of weeks ago when a reporter in the White House said people are worried about $4 a gallon gas. And he said, well, at least they won't have a nuclear missile being thrown at them, I think was the words he used. Again, let's just be clear. That may be a concern for people, but it's not an actual capability. And I only say this because we got tricked into an entire war in Iraq about weapons and capabilities that they had that weren't true. It's just not true. I think it was a lie that we obliterated their nuclear
Yep.
capabilities last June, but they do not have a nuclear weapon, and they do not have a missile upon which they could put that nuclear weapon that would make it to the United States. It could affect American allies in the region. It could affect American bases in the region. That's all true, but Iran doesn't have something that can come to the United States and pose a threat. It does have abilities in the United States, right? Unlike Venezuela and Cuba, it does have the ability to be disruptive through other things, including cyber attacks and possible physical terror attacks.
Yes, all of those are true. And it's why there were so many members asking the question of why now for the Iran beginning of the war? There was this word of imminent used repeatedly by Rubio and Hegseth and others.
Yes.
Well, there was an imminent attack, and that intelligence, at least on Capitol Hill, was never fleshed out enough to really placate people. And even as Democrats, I wrote this on probably day 3 of the war. Democrats were really threading this needle of, I am not opposed to action that takes out the leader of Iran and makes it more difficult for them to fund proxies in the region and makes it more difficult for them to terrorize their own people. Democrats were not against taking out that part. They were against the way that it was done,
right,
and the sort of haphazard future path that we're still asking here, even as this viewer is asking.
And Tulsi Gabbard went before Congress, and she got into it with John Ossoff.
Exactly.
And he asked her many times, was there an imminent threat? And she finally said, it's not for the intelligence community to determine whether there's an imminent threat. That's for the president. He said, no, that's just not true.
She's the intelligence community.
It's for the president to decide what he does about it. But it's not the president. The intelligence community makes the determination. They call them assessments. They give them to the president. So there's going to be a lot of questions after this as to who said what to whom. J.D. Vance sounds like the guy who was saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, which is why he was the best hope to get a deal done in Islamabad. But they sort of spent one day and said there was no deal and left. I hear there's talk that they're trying to get another set of talks together using Pakistan as the intermediary. So a little bit unclear. Hey, I think we got a question about this very interesting AI video that Donald Trump posted the other day. It is from, it's Molly. Hi, Molly. It's Molly T119 in the chat. And it says, what effect will Trump's AI religious post have on that wing of his party? Will they flip or sit out the midterms? This is your expertise, my friend. By the way, if we haven't seen this, can we just put this?
Just put it on the screen.
Let's roll this video of Donald Trump. Oh, it's a photo that we've got. It's I've seen different things that have been fiddled around with, and I think people
the internet has been interneting in a way that
they've made this into. I got him flying away and all that. But fundamentally, it's a picture of Donald Trump looking
as Jesus.
Let's not mince words. It's Donald Trump as Jesus with his hands on somebody's head and apparently healing them. What have you heard?
I think that we should just let the voters that our friend Alex Tabbitt found speak for themselves. Can you guys play that?
That's a disgrace. I'm very upset about that. I mean, how egotistical can you possibly be?
As a Christian, how do you feel when you see this image?
Offended. Yeah, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that he would actually do that. A man I voted for and trust. You know what I'm saying? People are going to see this at work. I'm upset about it.
As a Christian, what do you make of this?
I find it appalling. It's disgusting. You're mocking my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He's mocking it. I don't agree with it. I think he should put his phone down and focus on running.
I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor.
Man, I'm 44 years old, bro. That's not a doctor. That's him depicting himself as Jesus Christ. That is blasphemy in its purest form, in my opinion.
No, I don't see the doctor.
Does that look like a doctor?
I mean, I believe that he thinks he heals people, that he heals people together. Yeah, doesn't look like it to me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it is both everything we've come to expect from Trump. This is not even the first time I've seen him get into a religious mess, because
no, he wanted to be the Pope. Remember, he wanted to be the Pope?
Well, but he's posting this at the same time that he's actually feuding with the literal Pope.
Yes.
And it's not even the first Pope that he has feuded with.
Yes.
And it makes no sense why you keep touching the hot stove only to continue touching the hot stove.
Yeah.
And yet he does to no political benefit.
Right.
And yet this is just like what it's become.
Well, he said about this Pope something very similar he said about Pope Francis, right?
Yes.
It's always got to do with immigration or crime or whatever. They're easy on crime or whatever the case is. I mean, it is tough to take people who live in ecclesiastical writings and gospel writings that do talk about the poor and the least among us and then turn that into light on crime. The Pope responded to the president saying, not really, we don't do the same sort of thing. Let's listen to the Pope himself in his words responding to President Trump.
I do not look at my role as being political or politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. And I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states, to look for just solutions to problems. Too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed. And I think someone has to stand up and say, there's a better way to do this.
Now, Ali V, nothing he says is a major departure from what a modern pope or modern global religious leader would say. This is the language they speak, right? When he delivers his sermons in St. Peter's Square, it is generally about peace, about the least among us. This is their day. This is their thing. You can like it or not like it, but that's kind of what popes do. They're not interested in this fight with Donald Trump. And I think Pope Leo in particular is the first American pope.
Yeah.
Wants to tread carefully, right? He's not looking for fights with Donald Trump because, like most other people, he's got stuff to do. Like CEOs in America have learned, if you start getting into it with Trump, he's got all day to get into it with you on social media and you actually have a company to run. I think Pope Leo's not interested in this fight, frankly.
Yeah. Also, the guy in the president who wants the Peace Prize is mad at the Pope for preaching about peace. About a war that the president started. That is the circular reasoning that we are following right now.
Yeah.
The other thing, this is I think a serious thing, enough so that, for example, the Italian prime minister, who's actually a close ally of Trump,
pretty conservative,
and conservative, and denounced what he said about the Vatican and about the Pope.
And now he's mad at her. Donald Trump has now criticized the Italian prime minister for doing this.
But there's the political and there's the serious and there's the deep hurt that I think some in the faith community feel.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm watching those clips from Alex Tabbitt and you watch that guy say, people are going to see this at work. And it feels sort of like the political equivalent of the Summer House drama where they say, Carl's a mess. That is what is happening here.
Yes.
And it's going to live rent free in my head. And Alex Tabbitt just does such a good job for us, helping us understand where voters actually are on something that feels nuts.
Yes.
And then that voters are metabolizing as nuts, even as they're like, no, you're clearly not a doctor. You were trying to be.
And there's sort of three elements to this, right? There's people of the Catholic faith who might have issues with this.
Exactly.
There are people who are Christians who will just take issue with, again, this is not the first time Donald Trump has portrayed himself as a Christ-like figure, which is generally frowned upon in Christianity. The idea is you should live a life like Christ.
I'm lapsed, but even I know that.
But you're right. You should live a life free of sin as much as possible, like Christ. But people are not Christ. And then there's the rest of the world who might not be Catholics or otherwise be Christians, who are like, don't mock religion. Tucker Carlson. I don't quote Tucker Carlson an awful lot, but when Donald Trump did that, he threatened. He did that. He had that social media post a couple weekends ago in which he used profanity, and he said, "Praise be to Allah" at the end. And Tucker Carlson said, "You're mocking my faith. When you mock faith, you're just mocking faith, and that's not what we do. If we want to have political disagreements, or we want to even disagree with other people's faith because of the way it manifests in public policy, those are all spaces that are okay. But when you just mock other people's faith in the name of my faith, you're not getting the world any closer. We're not looking at solving any problems. I don't know why he does it, but I also don't know why he pulls it down as quickly as he did. He pulled that AI thing down. I don't know what that was. So is that some people in Donald Trump's faith influencers who said this is a bad move?
Probably. And at the same time, from the moment I started covering him in 2015, I've never actually heard him say, I'm sorry, even after the Access Hollywood tape. It was not an apology. It was an explanation that he offered at that point. But this is, the pulling down, this is an administration that never wants to backtrack or show weakness or admit wrongdoing. Even though I think in many instances, the American public is often forgiving of that kind of a mea culpa. And in this instance, the president just tried to explain it away as something that people could clearly see that it wasn't.
Well, it
And so,
absolutely
yes,
wasn't.
You know
Why do you
that
think
he
you're a
got the
doctor? Doctors
outrage.
don't. That's not what doctors dress like. They say something about the Red Cross, not about the Red Cross.
Yeah, I mean, I guess now we know what the Halloween costume is, but like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a little weird.
It's a little weird, and I think he was hearing from people about it.
I got to
they were
imagine
saying
because he
it
doesn't
publicly.
because he never like you said, doesn't apologize and doesn't take things down.